The coursework in the second year of high school is much like that of the first year, but the pressure grows tremendously due to the cumulative workload. Moreover, there's a critical test in the second year, the academic proficiency test, which is held at the end of December. After National Day, everyone's focus shifts to this test. Before the academic proficiency test, Jianxin visited the hospital again. With Zhang Bishan's advance notice, every process was made much easier. She arrived a little later than the scheduled time, and in front of her was a male patient suffering from PTSD. He was around the same age as Zhang Bishan. Allegedly, he was a graduate of the army and had participated in a rescue mission in his first year after graduation. The mission was successful, but his comrade in arms died in a fire. After the patient left, the doctor reminded the patient's family, it's imperative to pay attention to this matter and not ignore it. Even a mild case of PTSD can become severe over time. The family did not seem to take the matter seriously. Yishan is quite a small town, and many cultural concepts are not deeply understood. When confronted with such obscure issues, parents tend to dismiss it as oversensitivity. For almost a year, Jianxin has not told her conditions to Jianru, precisely because she understands Jianru's attitude better than anyone. The locals here don't seem to care much about mental health issues, an intern said. The doctor, who took off his glasses and sighed as he wiped them, replied, there are fewer cases, and mental health issues are indeed harder to capture and observe than physical ones. The healing process is long and, more importantly, expensive. Indeed, the intern agreed with another sigh. It requires a significant financial burden that yields no significant results, so it's unsurprising that people find it unreliable. Everyone has their own difficulties. No one is spared from hardship. Jianxin calmly sat down in front of the doctor and answered questions following the process. After her answers, the doctor was reassured. You've been doing well lately. Jianxin gave a faint smile. The doctor, while writing the prescription, said, young lady, you're in the prime of your youth. Get some sunshine, smile more, and you'll bloom soon. When Jianxin took the prescription, she thanked him. It wasn't until Jianxin collected her medication that she realized she had left her backpack in the doctor's office. Heading back to get it, she saw a woman coming out of the office. The woman was well dressed in a dress and high heels, carrying a bag matching her shoes in color. She was elegant in every way. Upon seeing the woman's face, Jianxin froze on the spot. She stared at the woman taken aback, but then hastily turned away when the woman glanced in her direction. It wasn't until she passed by the woman that Jianxin realized her legs were shaking. The woman was Xu Zhengqing's mother. She was still very beautiful and gentle. It seemed as if time and age had always been kind to her. Jianxin blinked a few times, seemingly composed, but her palms were drenched in sweat. She didn't immediately go into the doctor's office and instead sat down on a chair near the door. The door to the clinic was left ajar, and a conversation could be heard. It was clear. Doctor, who is this, the case you mentioned before? Asked the intern. Yes, she used to be in our hospital. We watched her son grow up. He's excellent. He had an accident on his way to the test during his college entrance examination and missed a subject, replied the doctor. Is it PTSD? The intern inquired again. No, he just couldn't respond promptly, responded the doctor, mainly because the circumstances were almost identical and she wasn't feeling well that day, so her reaction was kind of excessive. Afterwards, the topic turned to PTSD. Outside the door, Jianxin was standing half-bowed, still holding medicine in her hand. The plastic bag she was carrying kept twirling, constricting her fingers and inhibiting the flow of blood. It didn't hurt, just a bit numb. Perhaps all hospital smells are the same, and Jianxin inexplicably thought back about Levi Cheng, who was lying in the hospital years ago. At that time, his leg was cast in a plaster. Was he feeling numb like her now? Then she remembered her grandmother. After she removed the oxygen mask herself, she began to have trouble breathing, suffered from a lack of oxygen in her brain, and her skin became numb. At that moment, did she also feel numb like Jianxin? People began to gather in the hospital, and the crosswind in the hallway was not as strong as usual. Jianxin felt a bit stuffy in her chest, and when she looked up and around, it was crowded with people. Before illness, everyone felt helpless. Jianxin looked up again, the ceiling much cleaner than the floor. Yet it was so high, as if it was the sky. The sky would not collapse, but people's hearts would. Jianxin swallowed, but didn't feel the lump in her chest go down. She slowly stood up without releasing the twisted bag and knocked on the door to signal her presence. When the intern passed her backpack, he caught sight of her hand. "Oh dear, silly girl, your hand is bruised. Does it hurt?" he exclaimed. Jianxing lowered her eyes, saw her swollen fingers, and sarcastically replied, "It's fine. Are you really okay?" The intern looked at Jianxing. "I'm fine, I'm leaving now, thank you all," Jianxing said. After Jianxing left, the intern still stood at the door. The doctor, curious, asked, "What are you looking at?" The intern hesitated and asked, "Doctor, who is this patient really improving?" "Yes," the doctor replied, "her individual mood is also improving." "Why?" The intern scratched his head and asked, "Is there a possibility of an acute reversal?" "Actually, it's quite rare at her age," commented the doctor, "but long-term self-oppression can easily lead to obvious mood swings. I investigated her before, and she doesn't have this condition." "Can patients hide their condition?" asked the intern. The doctor was puzzled. "Why are you asking so many basic questions today?" "Usually, patients who can hide their conditions have serious symptoms and have been oppressed for a long time. It's impossible for her at this age." The doctor continued, "To put it bluntly, she is a big girl. How hard can life get for her?" The intern recalled the calm and tranquil eyes of Jianxing and murmured an "oh." Jianxing went to the hospital during dinner time before evening self-study. When she returned to school, Linjia had bought her a dinner and placed it on the table. There was a bottle of milk next to it. Jianxing glanced at Dayunayan, who smiled and said, "I just had a milk tea." "Don't want this, I gave it to you." Jianxing murmured her thanks with a bit of weight in her voice. She actually had no appetite, but Linjia was in a good mood and excitedly described how delicious the wrap was. Overwhelmed by her hospitality, Jianxing pretended to eat ravenously. As she was eating, the group huddled together to discuss the upcoming exam. Someone mentioned the high school entrance examination, and someone else immediately brought up Xu Zhengqing. Jianxing's movement of holding the wrap stiffened. Her mouth was chewing, but she didn't swallow. Her attention was entirely on the topic of Xu Zhengqing's high school entrance examination. Just then, Linjia said, "Hey, let's stop discussing this. It's old news, don't be so curious." The rest stopped talking immediately. After dinner, Linjia dragged Jianxing to the bathroom. While she was washing her hands, Jianxing casually asked, "What subject did the class president miss when he was absent from the high school entrance exam?" Linjia, less on guard towards Jianxing, truthfully replied, "Physics." Imagine getting into the transition class even without taking the physics exam. Impressive, isn't it? Physics. Jianxing's hands were still under the tap. It was December, and the water was a bit cold. After a while, they turned red from the chill. Her physics score was exceptionally high in the high school entrance exam, which smoothly got her into the transition class. The water has gotten colder. The wind blew, as if it was going to freeze every inch of the skin. Tightening it a little bit, there was a pain as if tearing apart. "Aren't you cold?" Linjia turned off the tap casually. Jianxing blinked, wiping off drops of water from her hand bit by bit. She half-dried her hand and then put them into her pocket. Each finger was cold and didn't seem to warm up. When we walked back, the corridor was already empty. The sky descended like a large black curtain. There were few stars above, no moon either. The only light source was from the classrooms. Jianxing walked along the edge of the railing, just into the edge of the light. She asked Linjia in a low voice, "Do you know why he missed the exam?" Linjia said, "It seems that his mother accidentally hit a person while driving. The person was fine, he stood up and patted off the dust and then left, but his mother was a little hypoglycemic that day, coupled with the shock, she fainted, so she went to the hospital and missed the exam." Jianxing lowered her head, watching her foot stepping on the darkest spot step by step. Someone happened to sweep the ground and splash some water in the winter. The edge was wet with the dust, just like a swamp. She whispered, "Oh." The wind outside the railing suddenly became heavier, blowing on her temples, buzzing in her head. What a pity, Jianxing seemed to not hear her own voice. Her voice was covered by the wind. And so was her guilt, too weak to resist the wind. "Yes, it's a pity," Linjia said. "Otherwise he would have been the grassroots member of the ambition department, and it wouldn't be our turn to taste the benefits." "That's true. Otherwise, how could she have run into him in her world?" After school in the evening, Jianxing didn't rush home. She sat in her seat, watching the people in the class leave one by one, and felt the air around her settling down quietly. She leaned slightly against the desks in the next row, turned her head, and her eyes fell on Xu Zhengqing's desk. His desk was not tidy, with a pile of examination papers, but Jianxing remembered that every time he searched for papers before the class, he could find it by just casually grabbing. There seemed to be a unique rule in his world. She couldn't get in or see it, but she had disturbed his order. She didn't kill Bo Ren, but Bo Ren died because of her. It became quieter around her, even the wind became silent. Jianxing turned off the lights in the classroom and locked the door. Only the light in the third class in the corridor was on. Jianxing walked past it and turned her head to see that Zulu was the only person in the class. She was bending over her books, looking very focused. It seemed that everyone has a direction. She used to think that she could have one too. Walking out of the school. Just near Aikiki, Jianxing saw Xu Zhengqing and Chen Boyu huddled together looking at the phone. After a while, Chen Boyu made a fuss, and Xu Zhengqing laughed and grabbed his phone back. Even if the curtain of the night had been drawn, the young man's eyes were as bright as a sea of stars. He leaned over, a playful smile hanging around the corners of his mouth and eyes. He said, "You use me to gossip about Lan Yu? Did I expose you?" Chen Boyu immediately shouted, Brother, I will never laugh at you again. From now on, Rabbit is my god." Rabbit. The first time she saw Rabbit was in this shop, that carefully packaged Christmas gift. Jianxing was watching. For the first time, she didn't take this opportunity to walk the path he had taken, but left from the other side of the road. When she got home, Jianru hadn't come back yet. In the past 6 months, Jianru has gotten busier and busier, too busy to take care of Jianxing. Jianxing was lying on the desk in a daze, and after a while, she pulled out her phone and dialed a number. "Hey, Jianxing," came Lu Cheng. Jianxing responded in a low voice, looking at the paper airplane in the drawer, and called out, "Dad." "What's the matter?" Lu Cheng asked. Jianxing opened her mouth but found it hard to speak. A sudden headache hit Jianxing, causing her to rest her forehead on her hand. She clenched her eyes shut, enduring the throbbing brought on by the taut string in her mind. After a good while, she finally whispered, "Nothing, just checking in with you." Lu Cheng fell silent for a moment, then said with a laugh, "I'm quite all right. I found a job at a hotel. They don't provide lodging, but they do offer a housing allowance." This was probably the first time Lu Cheng had a life of his own. With no one around to talk to, his speech flowed vigorously whenever someone asked. He had finally started to walk his own path. Meanwhile, she was still shackled, all alone. Jianxing listened and breathed a sigh of relief. She lifted her head and pushed the window open. Dark clouds loomed outside. Winter was here. Good weather had become a luxury. She ran her fingers lightly along the glass window. Since it was recently replaced, there was little dust on the edges, just a thin layer. She gently pinched and removed the dust. Glancing downward, she said, "That's great." Lu Cheng seemed to sense Jianxing's low spirits. Although he had a good temper, he wasn't very knowledgeable and couldn't offer any profound wisdom. The best consolation he could offer was to repeatedly say, "You'll get better too. Focus on school and go to the university you want after graduation. Don't worry about this. Your mom won't interfere. She trusts your choices more in this aspect." "Really?" Jianxing kept quiet, her eyes fixed on the clean edge of the window frame without blinking. Lu Cheng continued, "I know it is tough and sometimes a bit painful, but that's only for now. It will pass as time goes by. It's normal to feel unbearable at your age. When it's over, it will seem like nothing. That's not right. Pain is nothing but pain. Pain has no levels. No discrimination between today or tomorrow, or between childhood and adulthood." But then again, Lu Cheng had already lived through half of his life and finally pulled himself out of the mire. How could she make life harder for him by contradicting him with these words? Let her be the only one suffering in a room made of iron. The final exams ended on Christmas Eve, and a heavy snowfall the next day marked the arrival of Christmas. Everyone was taking pictures of their apples and oranges to share in the group chat. Just as Jianxing was about to log out, a phone call interrupted her. There is a delivery for her. She was puzzled. When the delivery arrived and she saw the sender's name was Wind Mutable Genius, she laughed. The package contained a Christmas-themed scarf. It was green and red stripy, which made the long white winter a bit less dreary. At around 5 in the afternoon, Jianxing received another call, yet another delivery. This time it was a box of tangerines. The sender, super beauty. Unable to resist, Jianxing told Chen Yanbei she should be friends with Zhang Baishen. Chen Yanbei doesn't like Zhang Baishen, saying he's too hypocritical. Outwardly he's carefree, but who knows what lurks underneath his surface. Jianxing retorted, "Aren't you the same?" Chen Yanbei naturally agreed, "Yes, so we repel each other of the same sex." Jianxing couldn't help laughing. The snow on Christmas lasted for a week. Plus, the strict regulations from the Board of Education, the annual New Year's party was cancelled. On New Year's Day, Jianxing spent the evening in a quiet self-study session as usual. When the school bell rang, everyone wished each other a Happy New Year. As the class leader, Xu Zhengqing chatted with everyone, and as he was leaving the classroom and passing Jianxing's desk, he knocked on it lightly. Jianxing looked up, her heart pounding. Before she could speak, Xu Zhengqing said first, "Happy New Year." Jianxing smiled and said, "You too." Xu Zhengqing casually lifted his chin, "See you?" Jianxing said, "Goodbye." Next year they will be seniors, and seniors don't have any New Year's parties. Thinking about it, last year's celebration turned out to be the only campus feast they ever had. She is enormously grateful for every frame of him on stage that she remembers. Once January passed, the winter vacation was around the corner. Because of the intervention of the higher authorities, the school had an early winter break this year, beginning on the 20th of the 12th lunar month. Other schools, while adhering to the policy, were secretly contacting parents to arrange supplementary classes for the students. Of course, Jianru wouldn't let this opportunity slip by. "Here is the money, you can enroll yourself," Jianru said. Thinking about the medicine she was running out of, Jianxing took the money. She planned to spend her days at the bookstore like she did during the summer vacation, then go back home in the evening. However, she wasn't expecting to be turned away when she got to the bookstore. Seeing the cat lying in the flower bed beside the bookstore, a hunch about certain things started to grow in Jianxing's heart. But she didn't ask Zhang Baishen about it. Neither of them was good at putting their feelings into words. With the school shop closed, Jianxing could only spend her days in the newly opened bookstore shop across from Yizhong. The shop was actually quite chaotic, with lots of kids and old folks hunched, sat or laid around just to soak in some warmth, chatting away loudly. It was impossible to concentrate on reading, but it served as a safe haven nonetheless. On the 23rd of the 12th lunar month, Chen Yanbei returned to He County. Jianxing, having nothing better to do, suggested whimsically, "Should I come to pick you up?" Chen Yanbei, in the middle of getting off the train amongst the chaos, asked, "How are you planning to do that?" "Using your 2 legs in the bus No. 11. Jianxing replied, "I can take a bus. It costs only 12 yuans. The fare has gone up for the new year." "It's 15 now," panting, Chen Yanbei said, "Forget about it. Don't bother. You have no idea how many people want to do the same. You may not even get to board the bus." Not wanting to cause any trouble, Jianxing simply replied, "Okay, then I will wait for you in the Xinhua bookstore." Chen Yanbei agreed. He County doesn't have a train station. When Chen Yubai returns from school, she can only stop at Linxi and then take a bus back to He County. The journey usually takes about an hour and a half, but due to the Spring Festival travel rush and bad weather, it would probably take 2 hours. Jianxing checked the time and settled down to wait. She was about to head to the domestic literature section when the store suddenly went quiet. The silence was conspicuous. Jianxing, attracted by the stillness, followed the crowd's gaze. A girl had just entered. Her hair was long and styled in large waves. This hairstyle was selective, but it made her seem young and mature. Her hair was dyed brown. When she entered, and the light from outside hit her hair, a bit of golden glow could be seen. She wasn't dressed lightly, but she did have an elegant vibe with her pink woolen coat. It seemed like it was from Aeolian. What drew everyone's attention was likely her face and demeanor. She didn't look very old, but she carried herself with grace that didn't belong to a typical bookworm. She was like a white swan. Her skin was also good. The cold wind had caused a red flush on her cheeks. She covered her face with her hand as she inquired at the front desk. After a short while, she walked over. Jianxing stood inside the bookshelf, hidden from the woman's view because of the blind spot. As she looked at the woman, she thought to herself that she was indeed as pretty as imagined. During summer, she was sweet and charming in light, sheer clothes. Winter didn't bury her grace underneath thick clothes either. She and Xu Zhengqing's mom were the same type of people. Jianxing watched as she moved to the bookshelf in the domestic literature section. She made a call. Her voice was sweet as she laughed and said to the other person, "The Yizhong bookstore is closed, so I have to come here." Jianxing, standing with her back towards her, had nothing in her hands initially. But when the woman turned around, she hastily picked up a book. It was you who was surviving. Just as if, in the dark, it was suggesting something. Jianxing's back grew stiff. She felt even more nervous than when seeing Xu Zhengqing. With each step the woman took forward, her heart remained calm. However, her backbone seemed to bend a little bit more every time. "Excuse me, do you have any copies of this book that are still sealed?" A sweet voice suddenly sounded by her ear. Jianxing felt a sharp twinge in her ears and abruptly turned around. The girl was asking someone nearby. The other person held Shen Fu's 6 chapters of A Floating Life. The person seemed quite pleased. Being approached by a beautiful girl tends to be a mood booster. He took the initiative to get an unopened copy from the top shelf and handed it to the girl. The girl thanked him, with a small bow signifying great manners. After she got the book she wanted, she seemed pleased and immediately dialed a number. "I found it." Her voice was a tad flirty, making it more charming. The person on the other end laughed. Impressive. Jianxing wondered why she could hear the voice on the other end of the phone so clearly, despite the noise in the bookstore. Was the phone's quality too poor, or was it too good? "Are you planning on reading all the books I have read?" the person on the other end asked. "Why not?" the girl replied. "My art test has finished. Now I've got lots of time." "All right, impressive," the person on the other side said. "I thought you would have finished reading those by now." "Finished reading what?" the girl questioned. "Playing dumb with me," the person on the other side said. "What do you mean? Are you annoying, Xu Zhengqing?" The girl pretended to be angry. Before the girl turned and left, Jianxing heard Xu Zhengqing's compromising voice coming from the other end of the phone. All right, watch and see, chin up bunny bunny." The figure of the girl gradually receded. In Jianxing's hand, the grip on the book To Live was tightening. Her fingers turned white from exertion. A swell seemed to rise in the corners of her eyes, but she could still clearly read every single word in the book. "We come into this world because we have to. We eventually leave this world because it's a must." Jianxing closed the book. The cover was pitch black. The words were in white against the black background, 2 short and thin words, yet they instantly seized people's gaze. They looked both standing tall and stooping over. They were like the backbone within Jianxing's heart. They were like her very existence. "I saw you standing there like a needle the moment I walked in. What are you doing?" Chen Yanbei approached and patted her on the shoulder. Jianxing came back to herself and closed the book. She blinked, a bit befuddled as she asked, "Is it late already? What time is it?" "It's not even 6 yet," said Chen Yanbei, "but I'm starving. Come on, let's go eat." "What would you like to eat?" As Jianxing asked, she seemed absent-minded, almost drifting. Chen Yanbei looked at her curiously for a moment, then asked, "How is your medication doing?" "It's doing well," Jianxing said. "The doctor says it's getting better." "Really?" asked Chen Yanbei. Jianxing changed the subject. "What would you like to eat?" "There's a new place near the sports ground that serves delicious potato starch noodles. Wanna go?" Hearing about food, Chen Yanbei was reeled back in. She grabbed her suitcase and said, "Let's go. I also want to eat some sesame seed cakes." "How many do you want?" 8. Haha. During the meal, Chen Yanbei kept observing Jianxing. Jianxing knew and just let Chen Yanbei watch before finally asking, "What do you think? Have I gained weight?" Chen Yanbei smiled slyly and said, "Just a bit." Jianxing said, "Wait till the next time you come back. I'll gain 10 more pounds." "That would be great." Chen Yanbei suddenly recalled something and asked, "What's Uncle doing right now?" Jianxing said, "I heard he's working at a hotel. I don't know the details. I haven't had time to visit, but I'll check on him during the new year." "Okay," Chen Yanbei said. "I won't be staying in the county tonight. I need to catch the last train home." "What are you going home for?" asked Jianxing. "Not sure. Some relative came out of nowhere and asked the village head for me. I'm going to see." Jianxing was a bit worried. "Do you have to go? Can't they come here?" If something bad were to happen, Chen Yanbei, a young girl alone in the village, couldn't even run away. "What are you worried about?" said Chen Yanbei. "Who would dare mess with me? Don't worry. If anything happens, I'll call you first." Because of what Chen Yanbei said, for the first time, Jianxing turned on her phone's ringtone. On the 27th day of the 12th lunar month, the cram school went on holiday. Jianxing had already inquired that classes would be suspended until the 5th of the first lunar month, Xu Zhengqing's birthday, and then resume until the 10th of the first lunar month. School officially started on the 12th of this year. She still had some time left. What Jianxing didn't expect was on the 27th, Jianru came home very early. She usually wouldn't return until 10 o'clock at night, but today she ran into Jianxing in the alley. Jianxing had just had noodles at a restaurant outside and felt a little bloated and uncomfortable. She looked at Jianru and asked, "Why are you so early today?" Jianru got out of the car, not uttering a word, her face pale and glum. Jianxing felt a sense of unease and pressed further. "Mom, what's wrong?" The two entered the house one after another. Jianxing had not yet closed the door when Jianru's hand came down in a slap. Jianxing reacted quickly and the slap landed on her neck instead. It was winter and she was wrapped in thick clothes, so it didn't hurt. Jianxing stumbled back into the iron door with a clang. The impact left a slight ringing in her ears. She looked at Jianru, seeing Jianru's face turn even paler, almost venturing into the color of black. Soon, Jianxing stopped her random thoughts because Jianru asked her, "Where do you go every day?" Jianxing said, "Bookstore." Jianru responded with a laugh filled with rage, then caught hold of the broom next to her and started hitting Jianxing with it, cursing as she did so. "Do you think I've gone senile? That I'm easily fooled like your grandmother? Bookstore. What do you do in a bookstore? You took the money but didn't attend the cram school. You're skipping classes. You even skipped summer school. Jianxing, are you treating me right? I was thinking of picking you up from the cram school for the new year. But what happened? The result? They don't even have you listed as a student. You dropped out of summer school. You didn't attend even for a day." Exhausted from beating and with her eyes turning red from the anger, Jianru pointed at Jianxing, her whole body shaking. "Jianxing, what the hell is going on? What the hell is going on? Who did you learn this behavior from? Is it Chen Yanbei? Are you hanging out with her again? Speak up." Jianxing's hair was all messed up, and her face was scraped with blood by the broom. Her voice was faint as she asked, "What do you want me to say?" Out of breath, Jianru clutched her waist, then shouted even louder after regaining some breath, "What the hell is wrong with you? Are you out of your mind? Do you know how many people you are failing by doing this?" When the bellowing subsided, big snowflakes began to fall. Everything was quiet. Jianxing straightened her disheveled clothes bit by bit. It wasn't quite the same as the last time she was beaten. That time Lu Cheng was there. She saw him stand up for her, and her heart was filled with a twisted sense of hatred and loss. But now, at this moment, she suddenly felt a sense of relief. She raised her head, meeting Jianru's gaze. Jianru's eyes were red, and so were hers. But she managed to smile, and she said, "It's exactly because I'm so afraid of disappointing you that I am like this." "What?" It was unclear whether Jianru was confused by the anger or not, but she asked back in disbelief. But Jianxing heard her clearly. She said, "Nothing's wrong with me, I just want to be like this. I don't want to go to cram school, so I won't. I want to go to the bookstore, so I will. I just do what I wish." Throughout these years, first, she was afraid of letting down Jianru, later, her grandmother. She was afraid of letting everyone down, except for herself. Yes, because she was willing. What she wanted was this willingness. Having said that, Jianxing suddenly felt that her entire body was drained of fatigue. She didn't even feel cold anymore, her body was warming up. So this is what Chen Yanbei was talking about, living for oneself. It was indeed quite addictive. "You're mad," Jianru suddenly said quietly. "You're mad. You're mad." Jianxing didn't want to continue the estrangement. She was preparing to go around Jianru to her own room, but she was shoved hard by Jianru as she passed by. Jianru pointed at her. Get out of my sight." Jianxing didn't look back. The winter night fell early, and with the last shred of dusk disappearing, the cold air descended. With each step, Jianxing stepped into the snow. Leaving a footprint with each step, she walked far under the streetlights. She dialed Lu Cheng's number and asked for his address. Perhaps it was because she now had a direction that each of her steps seemed much lighter. Until a pop-up message appeared on QQ. It was from Zulu. Jianxing was taken aback. a little surprised. "Sulu, are you there?" Jianxing replied, "I'm here." "Sulu, are you all right?" Jianxing didn't understand and replied with a question mark. "Sulu, why did you take it upon yourself to drop the course? Have a good talk with your mother, don't do this again." "Sulu, Jianxing, some things are just not suitable for us to do. Isn't it better to be a well-behaved child and study well? Rebellion isn't a good thing." This unexpected reprimand. Jianxing felt that Zulu is always off the mark and too self-righteous. She asked, "Is there something wrong?" Just after she sent the message, Jianxing suddenly caught sight of the sentence Zulu had said, "Have a good talk with your mother." She paused, immediately asking, "What about my mother? What happened?" The snow was swirling down thicker and faster. The streetlight made the falling snowflakes glow red, making the trails of blood on Jianxing's face even more noticeable. "Zulu, hasn't your mother spoken to you yet?" "Zulu, she already knows and even made a scene at the tutoring class tonight, saying that the tutoring class allowed students to drop courses on their own and demanded compensation." Zulu, Principal Yi was about to explode with rage. Jianxing frowned. She could guess what Jianru must have said and done. Once she started making a scene, it was probably quite ugly. Unlike before when she would feel powerless every time Jianru upset her, this time she felt annoyed. Good thing she had some pocket money left. She could pay back Yi He and Tang through Zhang Baishen the next day. Maybe she should also invite him for a meal and apologize in person. Jianxing sighed internally, replying to Zulu, "I got it." She thought for a bit, adding, "Thank you. Zulu, you need to take care of yourself. Even though there was nobody from your class at the tutoring class this time, your class leader and Principal Yi are friends. He was there today and it might get spread to your class." Class leader. Xu Zhengqing. The temperature seemed to drop instantaneously. So did her body temperature. Staring at the words on the screen, the heart that was originally soaring dropped to an abyss. Xu Zhengqing was there. That's right, Zhang Baishen mentioned before that his friend owned the tutoring class. So it was only natural Xu Zhengqing would know him. Xu Zhengqing saw Jianru. Did he recognize Jianru as the person who took a large sum of money from his parents and caused him to miss his high school entrance exam? Xu Zhengqing saw Jianru. Perhaps it was his first time seeing such a kind of mother, right? It was a world of difference from the elegant, gentle, and beautiful mother he remembered. Xu Zhengqing saw Jianru. Xu Zhengqing saw the mess that was her life. He saw that her good grades were actually built upon the things she stole. Bang! The snow was falling too hard. The temperature was too cold. The streetlight was frozen and exploded. The world plunged into darkness. Only the faint glow from the phone remained. This tiny bit of weak light seemed like countless sharp knives stabbing Jianxing in the eyes. At this moment, she desperately wanted to click into Xu Zhengqing's chat window. She wanted to say sorry to him for again intruding into his life. But it was too cold, her hands were already frozen. She couldn't press the keys or breathe. Suddenly, she felt spasms in her stomach. Jianxing leaned over and vomited on the deserted street. Jianxing started to have a fever in the middle of the night. The physical and emotional pain came rushing like seawater, wetting her entire body. In a daze, she heard Lavicheng calling her name. She opened her eyes and saw his concerned and anxious gaze. Her lips were so dry they cracked, but she still managed to smile, saying, "I'm fine." Lavicheng could do nothing but sit quietly by the bed. This was a small room of less than 20 square meters, with the kitchen and bathroom outside. Inside, there was only space for a bed, a table, and a simple wardrobe. The light bulb seemed to be broken and the dim light added more gloom to Lavicheng's face. Before Jianxing came, Lavicheng had nailed 2 nails to the wall, tied a rope between them, and hung a sheet on it, dividing the 1.5-meter bed into 2 separate spheres for father and daughter. At this moment, Jianxing was lying down and Lavicheng had slightly drawn back the sheet, occasionally asking her if she needed water. Jianxing, afraid of going to the bathroom too often, only took small sips of water when her mouth became uncomfortably dry. Unable to bear it, Lavicheng put down the cup and got up. Before he turned around, Jianxing saw a deep red in the corner of his eyes. She called, "Dad?" Lavicheng did not turn around. His back was hunched. With a voice full of restraint and hoarseness, he said, "I'm going out for a smoke. You rest first." Jianxing watched as he opened the door and closed it again. The cold wind squeezed its way in, making her both alert and confused. She had always thought that it was not a big deal to break free from Jianru. She still had her father. But now, as she lay on the coarse fabric of the pillow, looking at Bie Siwei's spot on the bed which didn't even have a pillow and he had to use folded clothes as a cushion, she suddenly felt she was such a burden. Why was she always such a burden? The room was not much warmer than outside when the door was closed, and Jianxing's illness hit her like a storm. It seemed as if all the restraints she had masked in the past were devouring her with interest. On the 29th, Jianxing had no choice but to get Anne for. The clinic was already empty. She had to go to the hospital. Bie Siwei ran around for her, asking if she was cold or hungry. Seeing him busy for her, she grabbed his arm and said, "You sit down, I told you I'm not hungry." Bie Siwei was restless, very constrained. He wanted to give everything to his daughter. Only when he set about doing it did he realize that he didn't have anything. He didn't know what to say. He only knew how to say, "It's Dad's uselessness." Jianxing didn't want to hear that and pretended to be sleepy and closed her eyes. On New Year's Eve, Bie Siwei made a pot of fish soup and ribs, stir-fried egg with green pepper, and made a dish with 3 kinds of vegetables. The table was a small square one, very low. The stools matching it were even shorter. Jianxing sat at one of them, drank half a bowl of fish soup, and said after finishing, "Your cooking is getting better and better." Bie Siwei was pleased and kept giving her more dishes. There was no TV in the room, so they couldn't watch the Spring Festival gala. But when they drew the curtains, they could see many fireworks, and the sound of firecrackers never stopped. Jianxing hugged the hot water bag in her arms and said to Bie Siwei before going to bed, "Dad, Happy New Year." Bie Siwei said, "We will be better next year." Jianxing said, "Definitely." After the light in the room was turned off and the sheet was pulled up, Jianxing turned over and burrowed into the quilt. Her hands and feet were icy, but her heart was beating fast. Darkness amplifies everything, including her small and fragile heart. Everyone in their class group was congratulating each other. The topic went from the Spring Festival gala to setting off firecrackers. Someone occasionally asked where everyone was with their winter homework, which instigated the group's surge to kick him out. One person at Xu Zhengqing irresponsibly asking the class leader to make decisions. "Water to the right channel, on the new year, don't drag me down." His one sentence elicited applause emoticons from others. Another year has passed. Unlike her, each new year for him was filled with even greater anticipation. He was like an immortal banished to the edge of the sky, forever free from the worries of mortals. And she, even being a mortal, is fraught with difficulties. In the end, Jianxing did not disrupt Xu Zhengqing. She opened and closed his window countless times. In the end, she only said in the group, "Happy New Year to everyone." Secretly, "Happy New Year to you." On the 3rd day of the new year, Bie Siwei returned to work. He left early in the morning and returned late at night. Jianxing was alone at home, not feeling lonely, no longer treasuring every moment of solitude like before. She started to enjoy it. In the afternoon, Chen Yunbei called her. Jianxing asked her what exactly happened in her hometown. Chen Yunbei said, "It seems like my mom has a good friend who married a wealthy man in the south for a second marriage, and now she wants to sponsor me to go to college." Jianxing asked, "Are you going to accept it?" Chen Yunbei asked, "Why wouldn't I accept it?" Jianxing laughed, "I think you should." Chen Yunbei said, "Yeah, screw self-esteem. The future is what matters. I've already discussed it with her. Next year you'll be in 3rd year, make a sprint, I'll also join a class and let's rush together." Jianxing said, "Sounds good." For dinner, Jianxing just warmed up some food. Zhang Bishan texted her during dinner, not about the tuition classes, but asking her if she was free to go out for a meal tomorrow. Instead of beating around the bush with him, Jianxing directly asked if he and Tang could be brought along too. Only then did Zhang Bishan ask, "How about you? Has your aunt made things difficult for you?" Whether it's difficult or not can't be explained in just a sentence or two. Jianxing did not want to lie about Jianru and cover her with a good person's facade, so she skipped this question. She said, "Apologize to Principal Yi for me, I'm really sorry." Zhang Bishan, "It's okay, he's not upset." Jianxing, Zhang Bishan, "So are you coming out tomorrow?" Jianxing, "Sure, what do you want to eat?" "It's on me." Zhang Bishan, "Wow, big words, how much did you get for New Year's money?" Jianxing, "Enough to feed you." Zhang Bishan, then let's hit up Shishio Street. There was a characteristic noodle dish in Hoxian, and there was a very famous restaurant on Shishio Street. In the morning before Levicheng left, Jianxing told him she was going out for a bit, and without any hassle, Levicheng gave Jianxing 100 yuans. Jianxing said, "I have money." "Take it," Levicheng said. "It's your New Year's money." Jianxing did not say anything else, just caught a glimpse of Levicheng yawning tiredly as he left. The door closed, and Jianxing's gaze did not shift. She sat by the bed for a long time before getting up to take her medication. Not much was left, and considering her current situation, it was not a good time to get a new prescription. Jianxing stared at the medicine in her palm for a while, then broke one of the pills into 3. She only took one small portion. Jianxing arrived at Shishio Street first. As it was the New Year period, there weren't many people. She went straight to the restaurant and found that Zhang Bishan had already arrived. Just him. Jianxing went over and asked, "Where is Principal Yi?" "He's not a principal. At most he's an upperclassman." Zhang Bishan gestured for the waiter to come over, ordered 2 bowls of noodles, each with an added egg, and also ordered a small portion of lamb paws. In the process, he asked Jianxing, "Can you eat spicy?" Jianxing said, "Medium is fine." After the waiter left, Zhang Bishan continued, "He's busy visiting relatives." Jianxing responded with a no. Zhang Bishan looked at Jianxing for a moment, then said in a teasing tone, "Come on, look up at me." Jianxing was a bit confused but looked up anyway. Zhang Bishan just glanced at her, then said, "You're looking rather down." Jianxing lowered her gaze again and hummed in agreement, not refuting. Zhang Bishan asked, "Have you been sleeping?" Jianxing said, "No." It seemed to be within Zhang Bishan's expectations. He hummed and said, "Then come with me for a bit later." Jianxing declined. "No need," she said. "You won't be able to tell anything." Zhang Bishan, if my aunt heard these words, do you believe her blood pressure could shoot up to 20? Jianxing kept her head down to eat. After the meal, Jianxing settled the bill, and Zhang Bishan didn't refuse. The two left the restaurant, and Zhang Bishan put a cigarette in his mouth. It was then that Jianxing noticed he was carrying a bag. They exited Shishio Street and walked all the way to Wenming Road. When they turned into the park, Jianxing hesitated. She only paused for a second, but Zhang Bishan noticed and asked, "What's wrong?" This time Jianxing didn't hide it and said, "My mom might be up ahead." Zhang Bishan gave an understanding nod and didn't ask further, only suggesting, "Then shall we go this way?" Jianxing asked, "Where are you going?" Zhang Bishan replied, "Walking you home." Jianxing said, "There's no need." In broad daylight, it honestly made no difference. Zhang Bishan asked again, "Still not going to the hospital?" "Not now, let's talk about it next time." "All right." Zhang Bishan offered a bag and said, "Here's a New Year's gift." Jianxing accepted it. "Thank you." "You're really not polite." Jianxing retorted, "Do you need me to be?" Zhang Bishan laughed, "Then at least give back a gift. Didn't I treat you to lunch just now?" Zhang Bishan paused, then seriously called out, "Jianxing." Jianxing didn't make a sound. Zhang Bishan said, "You should consider becoming a lawyer. The country needs you." Jianxing laughed. Back home, Jianxing unpacked the gift. It was a copy of Shakespeare's sonnets. She had read it before. She believed Zhang Bishan knew she had already read this book, so why would he still give it to her? As she pondered, she casually flipped through the book and a leaf-shaped bookmark fell out. A line was written in English. Jianxing could understand it, and when translated to Chinese it said, "Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely, more gentle." Jianxing held the bookmark, staring at the black script. It looked a bit like Xu Zhengqing's handwriting, but not quite. So, what was Zhang Bishan doing? Imitating Xu Zhengqing's handwriting to give to her? Jianxing chuckled, and as she lowered her eyes, they were full of mocking intent. She thanked Zhang Bishan deeply, and even found him charming. The one she wanted to mock was herself. Only herself. At 9:30 in the evening, Levicheng knocked on the door to come in. Tonight, Jianxing was feeling a bit sleepy, but even with her eyes closed, her mind was clear. She heard Levicheng's knock and wanted to get up. She even felt as though she had already gotten up, as if in a dream. But then she found herself still lying on the bed. It wasn't until the door was pushed open that she came to her senses at Levicheng calling her name. She mumbled a response, and finally woke up when Levicheng tried to lift her. The string in her mind tightened in an instant. Jianxing opened her eyes and quickly explained, I was just asleep. Lovey Cheng put her down. His face was very serious. Were you asleep? You fainted. Jianxing closed her eyes and rubbed her temples. Lovey Cheng started to gather his shoes and clothes. Let's go to the hospital. Jianxing loosened her grip and spoke softly. There's no need. Lovey Cheng said, how do you know what's going on if you don't go? You're a high school student now. You can't take anything for granted. Jianxing stared blankly for a few seconds before saying, I know what's happening with me. Lovey Cheng was taken aback. Lowering her head, Jianxing picked at her nails and said, I've been a bit depressed for a long time. It's been diagnosed, but I think it's been okay, really, not particularly uncomfortable. My fainting today. Probably because I stopped taking my medicine too abruptly. Silence. After a minute, Lovey Cheng put down the shoes and clothes. Without a word, he turned and walked outside. In a little while, Jianxing smelled the strong scent of tobacco, and she also heard the cry of sadness from a man in his 50s, weather-beaten, but always silent. Jianxing no longer stopped taking her medication because Lovey Cheng agreed to cover her medication expenses from then on. On the night of the 4th day of the Lunar New Year, He County suddenly experienced a hailstorm that lasted for more than half an hour. Jianxing remembered that Lovey Cheng didn't take his umbrella when he left in the morning, so she took an umbrella to the hotel where Lovey Cheng worked just before his workday ended. The hotel on Shiyang Road was neither near nor far from where they lived. It would take about 10 minutes to walk there. However, the roads were slippery due to the recently melted hail. It took Jianxing almost half an hour to get there. The hotel was a small 7-days inn. There was only one front desk at the entrance, with an elevator next to it, and 5 floors of rooms above. Jianxing didn't go in. She waited at the doorway. After a while, she started to feel cold, so she opened her umbrella and edged it to the side to shield her. It wasn't long before Lovey Cheng came out with a colleague. The colleague was a woman whose tone of speech carried a subtle familiarity and much advice. I understand that you're worried about your daughter, but you can't ignore your health due to that. You're not young anymore, and you can't ignore the toll this might be taking on your health. Lovey Cheng, a man of few words, would only respond after a while with a non-committal grunt. The woman continued, if you're really concerned about snoring and disturbing her sleep, you could get her earplugs. My son bought me a pair and I feel they're quite useful. Lovey Cheng hesitated before asking, where can I buy these? The woman waved her hand dismissively. Never mind, you don't have to buy them. I'll bring you a pair tomorrow. Lovey Cheng smiled and said, thank you. As they lifted their heads, they saw that the snow and wind had stopped. The woman glanced at the ground and said, I'll walk you home. Lovey Cheng objected firmly, there's no need. The woman disagreed and got a bit angry. Why are you being stubborn now? Look at the weather outside. That's when Jianxing stood up. As soon as she stood up, Lovey Cheng saw her and looked shocked. Jianxing. Jianxing nodded and managed a small smile. Dad, I came to pick you up. Lovey Cheng was silent for a moment before letting out a few sighs. It was easy to tell that he was delighted. Then, as if he suddenly remembered something, his smile stiffened slightly. He looked at the woman and then at Jianxing, unable to introduce them to each other. In the end, it was Jianxing who spoke first. Hello, Auntie. The woman was more forthcoming than Lovey Cheng. She looked clean and efficient, thin, with deep laugh lines when she smiled, but she didn't appear sharp. Oh, so you're Xing. You're a good girl and very beautiful, the woman said. Well, now that you're here, I no longer have to worry. You too should hurry home and not freeze here anymore. Jianxing nodded. As she turned to leave with Lovey Cheng, she looked back and said, Goodbye, Auntie. The woman was pleased and said twice, goodbye, goodbye. The journey home was more silent for Jianxing and Lovey Cheng than the silent snowy streets. They returned home in quiet, and once inside, Jianxing started to busy herself with preparing hot water for Lovey Cheng to wash his face, and took the trouble to warm all the towels for him. Lovey Cheng was clearly uncomfortable with being taken care of and thrown off guard, said, I can do it myself. You go to sleep. Jianxing said, You know I can't sleep, don't you? Lovey Cheng became even more uneasy. Well, it's still not a solution to stay awake like this. Jianxing said, Right now, this is the only way. So, one of us needs to sleep well. We can't both collapse. Lovey Cheng didn't say anything. As Jianxing warmed up the towels, she casually said, "You don't need to worry about whether I sleep well or not. I'm on vacation now. If I can't sleep at night, I can make up for it during the day. When school starts, you have nothing to worry about either, as young people often pull all-nighters." Bie Siwei, still silent. After Jianxing finished preparing everything, she climbed into her bed. Bie Siwei sat on the edge of the bed to wash his feet. The hot water quickly warmed his feet, wrapping around his heart. He sat down and stared at the steaming water for a while before saying, "Jianxing, don't overthink." When he said this, he didn't look back, and Jianxing, playing with her phone, also didn't turn around. Jianxing said, "I didn't overthink it. You can do whatever you want." She added, "If she's truly good for you, it's fine. You, a man, can't take care of yourself well." Bie Siwei chuckled suddenly. "What do you know, kid?" Jianxing turned and retorted, "What don't I know? I'm so old now." On the side that Jianxing couldn't see, Bie Siwei's smile froze for a moment, then his expression sobered up. After Bie Siwei completed washing his feet, he dumped the water and crawled into the quilt. He turned the light off. The room was pitch black, with only the sound of breathing and the rustling of the quilt. For some reason, Jianxing always felt that Bie Siwei had something to say. A few minutes later, Bie Siwei broke the silence. "Jianxing." Jianxing responded quickly with an hum. The room went silent again. Jianxing seemed to sense his contemplation and hesitation. She didn't rush him. After a few more minutes, Bie Siwei finally said, "You've worked so hard. You should focus on your studies." In the darkness, Jianxing's eyes snapped open. Bie Siwei continued, "Speaking of feelings, and I remember when your mom and I just got married, your grandmother said something. Back then, she could still eat candy. In the heat of the summer, while lying on a lounge chair and fanning herself, she had mentioned to me that feelings are too mundane, that living day by day is the most realistic part of life. Mundane affairs might kidnap one's feelings, but they wouldn't interfere with daily life." Bie Siwei had pondered and mulled over these words for quite a while. Jianxing didn't reply. She only asked, "Dad, what are you trying to say?" Bie Siwei fell silent again. Just when Jianxing assumed Bie Siwei had fallen asleep, Bie Siwei suddenly said, "Never mind, go to sleep." Bie Siwei seemed to take Jianxing's words to heart and began snoring lightly not long after he closed his eyes. Jianxing wasn't bothered by the noise. On the contrary, it brought her comfort. She turned around and realized that this was the second time Bie Siwei had talked about feelings with her. And it was also the second time he told her that feelings were a mundane thing. What was he trying to tell her? Jianxing pondered this for a long time but still couldn't figure it out. In the middle of the night, Jianxing looked at her phone and saw quite a few new Q messages. It was only after clicking on them that she realized they were group messages. Before midnight arrived, people in the group were already mentioning Xu Zhengqing to wish him a happy birthday. This year Xu Zhengqing was not having a birthday party and seemed to be celebrating it with his family instead. He was turning 17. They were fast approaching their final stop. Jianxing didn't bother Xu Zhengqing individually, but like everyone else, sent her message in the group at midnight. A simple four-word birthday wish, quickly buried in a sea of other messages. Probably only she saw the message. But it didn't matter because she had never wanted anything in return from him. She was merely carrying out something she felt inclined to do. Sometimes our understanding of certain things may just come in a split second. Jianxing always thought Bie Siwei's words were vague and unclear. Although he always spoke about specific people and specific matters, she still felt his words were floating without real substance. She couldn't see the essence of them. But at this moment, she suddenly had some understanding. Another year had passed. Jianxing deleted the signature from last year and replaced it with a new one. "I'm willing to run into the tumultuous mundane world for you." This year, He County had an especially heavy snowfall. On the opening day of school, the snowfall was even worse. Jianxing ate at home before leaving. As soon as she pushed open the door, the wind was so strong that she couldn't keep her eyes open. The only umbrella at home was left at the entrance by Bie Siwei. Jianxing looked at it and decided to bring the umbrella with her. As she walked, the snow became heavier, almost making it impossible to proceed. The wind was also strong, threatening to knock her over. Every step forward seemed to drain half of her strength. To go to school from Bie Siwei's house, Jianxing no longer needed to take Renmin Road. She started by taking Jiangkang Road, turned into Zhanfeng Road, then the park led her directly to school. As she passed by the park, Jianxing spotted a female student amidst the heavy snowfall. She was wearing a down jacket. The fur collar of the jacket was pink. After covered by snow, the fur was in tufts but still looked clean. Behind her mid-length boots were two bunnies with furry ears. She wasn't holding an umbrella, but was holding a thermos, shaped like a bunny, which was rather adorable. Next to her, walking shoulder to shoulder, was a boy. He was wearing a black down jacket and a pair of short boots. His right boot was gray. He was holding an umbrella, and most of it was covering the girl. A layer of snow had accumulated on his right shoulder, but he didn't care. Occasionally, he would turn his head towards the girl to speak. As his eyes lowered, his eyelashes concealed any affection in his gaze. He was nice to everyone, but at this moment he was different. In that instant, the snowfall intensified. The clumps of snow falling onto the umbrella almost felt like they were hitting Jianxing's heart. With deepening snow beneath her feet, each step became increasingly challenging. Charitably so. During the new year, Lavicheng had bought Jianxing a new down jacket, a lengthy one, reaching her thighs. It was also very thick, as she could wear it alone with just thermal underwear when at home. Today, she also wore a high-necked woolen sweater beneath it, but it seemed incapable of staving off the snow and wind. The chilling cold seeped into her bone marrow, causing her vision to blur gradually. Jianxing slowly tilted the umbrella to block her front left view. She lied to herself that she was only looking at the boy on her right. Jianxing was wearing sneakers. Because they were low-cut, if she stepped carelessly, snow would fill the shoe. The snow gradually melted, soaking Jianxing's feet. The cold began from her feet. Yet she stubbornly kept up with each step. Every time she stepped into a pothole, it left a deep footprint, although she gradually fell behind. Around one turning corner, Jianxing fell behind. The wind swept the snow up, and Jianxing didn't use her umbrella to block it. She squinted, trying to see where they had gone, but she couldn't spot their figures for a while. As they were almost at the school, everyone was hunching their shoulders and pushing against the falling snow. Only Jianxing stood with her head held high as if she was about to be buried by the snowstorm. This winter seemed to be a tough one. The year 2011 seemed to be a difficulty to get through as well.